Welcome to Buffalo Rumblings Live. My name is Matt Warren. We're joined tonight for a very special edition of our show by Tim Graham from the Buffalo News, who was the first to report on the sale of the Buffalo Bills to Kim and Terry Pegula yesterday. Tim, what did it feel like when you got the text message, phone call, email, whatever it was, letting you know that it was a done deal and it was going to be the Pegulas moving forward?
Yeah, it was kind of hectic. I don't really know if people care how the sausage is made, but
People
I
asked
got
about
a
it.
yeah, I got a vague text. It seemed to say that it was done, and so I can't go on a vague text because that has actually gotten me in trouble before. If you text, so you have shorthand involved. People leave words out, when they're texting, and sometimes it's a critical word that can be left out that the person's not thinking of. They're just, they're writing in text shorthand. And so the source who let me know, I texted him back and said, "Can I go with this?" Meaning, are you just, giving up because you think this, or this is fact, And I got no response. So I called him, and he didn't pick up. And so I texted again and got no response. So now I'm about to go to a secondary source with some information, probably to say, "Look, I'm hearing that it might be done. What are you hearing?" type thing. And then I got the call. And so, of course, I wanted to get it up as fast as I could. And I had already let my editors know that so many people were going to be chasing this story on Tuesday that any breaking news I get, I'm going straight to Twitter with it first, and then I'll write a story. Because a lot of times reporters can get caught because their editors say, "No, you have to file a story first if you tweet anything," and while they're writing the story, somebody else breaks it. So I got it out as quickly as I could, and while I'm tweeting that, the secondary source texted me back and said, "Done deal." So I had two different sources right on top of each other there. And it's thrilling because I thought I did a good job covering ownership throughout the process over the past few months. But really, if I didn't get it yet, I probably would have been really disappointed. And there are national reporters. Once it gets past the trust and those bids are in, who's to say that the NFL doesn't slip the story to one of its preferred reporters? Which happens a lot. And my thought was, I gotta beat those guys. And then the other part I wanted to get was the price, and unable to do that. And I think a lot of the reason for that was the sources who I had been dealing with over the past couple of months were celebrating and didn't have time for reporters anymore. So they were not as responsive to me. So finally, until this morning, that I got the 1.4 billion confirmed. So Lauren Brill, who had it first yesterday, about an hour I think before anybody else.
Yeah, it was
And,
really. Yeah, I was glad to see that it was a local reporter, like you said, Lauren Brill from Channel 4.
yeah.
You're every once in a while you're breaking in and out, and it cut off right as you said her name. So I wanted to make sure that everyone heard that.
Oh,
And
okay.
I know that even like the Associated Press was reporting it was other sources, which is, I mean, that's fine. I mean, she's a little bit more off the beaten path than some of the other bigger names, but it was really cool. Now, you nailed that $1.4 billion price last month when you were on with us previewing the sale of the Bills. What determined the final price? John Crick of the Toronto Sun asked a few questions this morning. Like he gave like three possible scenarios. Pegula asks, "All right, what's the number that could end it?" and then wrote a check for that much. Or the trust tells him the number that could end it. Or there was another secret bidder that went to like 1.3. Then he just like trumped them. No pun intended, Donald Trump, who was way out of the running. But what were you hearing about what set that final price at the very end?
The first example that you gave, that there was a number that was said, this will end it right here. Can you meet it? Let's do it. Let's wrap this thing up. And that's what happened. And I guess I don't want to say, because it could have been the second example that you gave too. I'm not exactly sure how that conversation went, but it was made clear to the Pegulas, whether they asked or were told, that that you don't have to worry about it anymore. And they hit that number, and they were higher than everybody else, which seems like it's common sense, but there is theoretically ways for somebody to come in second or third and still be awarded the team because they have other things going for them. So, but the Pegulas had the highest bid, and it happened a lot faster than anybody thought, and that includes the Bills, that includes the Pegulas, that includes everybody that was involved in that process. I was originally told that it could happen as soon as Wednesday, but at about 10 o'clock the night before, I started getting word that this is happening fast, a lot faster than we expected. And then at about 11:15 or 11:30, I started getting word that this could happen overnight. So I got a few hours sleep that night, and I'll be honest, I was anxious that something could happen while I was asleep. So it had to be a whirlwind for those involved. And what an exciting day for Bills fans. I couldn't be happier for the people of Western New York.
Well, Brian and I did our normal podcast last night. We talked about the people of Western New York and calling up to WGR. I know you listened to a little bit of that, crying over the fact that their kids get to go to Bills games at Ralph Wilson Stadium, but at whatever stadium happens later, which is another conversation for a different day. I'm actually very interested in hearing what your thoughts are on Kim Pegula and what she's kind of bringing to the table. We have a lot of, at least a little bit of information on Terry Pegula and him as a business person, but we don't know a whole lot about her. And she's supposedly going to be making a lot of the executive decisions per multiple reports out there. What can you tell us about her background?
Not a lot, I'll be honest, because the Pegulas bought the Sabres after I stopped covering the team. I covered the Sabres for 7 years, and my last game was Daniel Briere and Chris Drury's last game. So Tom Golisano was still the owner, and they came in, and I've had no dealings. I've never met Terry Pegula. I've never met Kim Pegula. I can only go by what other people tell me, but I think that her influence is going to be not from the side of the stage. I think she is going to be heavily involved in major decisions for the team. And that doesn't mean player personnel or combing the waiver wire every day to tell Doug Whaley who to pick up, but the business side stuff. I think that there will be, if people want to know if there's going to be massive house cleaning or a status quo, and based on what I've been led to believe, because nobody really knows yet, I don't think the Pegulas even know yet. Because they need to get in and do a little bit more of a deeper review or evaluation, I should say, and they're going to want to meet people face to face, and they're going to probably want to interview people within the community, businesses, probably maybe even the media, which is they were very inquisitive when they came in with the Sabres. I expect them to do the same thing to find out, hey, what do you think of this guy? How is it to work with another guy? But I don't think it's going to be one or the other. I think it's going to be a combination. I think that there will be a lot of people, like, for instance, Russ Brandon. I'm fairly certain that he will be retained. That he's retained, then you'd think that Doug Whaley's retained. Doug Marrone, maybe not. I think, the Jim Overdorf, is he going to stay? It would seem that maybe not. I mean, he was, there are a lot of Ralph guys in that front office, and I think that the Pegulas are going to want Pegula guys in some of those roles. So it'll be to see what happens, but I think that Kim Pegula is going to be heavily involved in a lot of those decisions in particular.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. The only thing, I saw one brief snippet that her background is in public relations, which, I mean, if I was her, as you've been mentioning from the beginning, public relations is probably going to be a big part of this. Well, maybe not with Commissioner Goodell anymore. We'll see how that works out with what the Associated Press has reported today. But certainly having a female take the lead at a time like this for the National Football League would be a very good thing for the league. Am I right?
Well, I think so. It would hurt, that's for sure. The NFL does have female owners. Georgia Fronier was a female owner and the first one with the Los Angeles and St. Louis Rams. Virginia McCaskey technically is the owner of the Chicago Bears. Bud Adams' widow technically is the owner of the Titans, and Mary Wilson, for that matter, is technically the owner of the Bills right now. But they are not running the show. Somebody else is, a son, a proxy of some kind, a CEO that's been hired. I think that Kim Pegula is not only going to be attending owners' meetings, she's going to be sitting in the chair and making votes on NFL issues. And she's also a minority. So this adds a totally different dynamic, I think, to the owner. Now, she's still only one of 32. She doesn't have any more power than anybody else. And, of course, there are some people there that have more power than there's Jerry Jones, the Maras, Robert Kraft. But I think that to have a woman involved right now it helps the NFL's reputation at a time when it could use some help.
Right. And that's, of course, certainly accurate. Let's talk about some of the other bidders just for a minute. You had said right before the news broke about Terry Pegula that the Bon Jovi group was quietly confident.
Yeah.
Why?
Well, I don't know why. Maybe they were led to believe that they had a chance. And I'll tell you this, on Saturday, I started to hear that Terry Pegula was not a slam dunk. And I heard that again in the press box in Chicago at Soldier Field on Sunday. And then it was on Monday that I received word from a source in Canada that said, that told me that they were quietly optimistic that they could pull an upset. And all three of those bits of information put together, was, noted that put things on my radar a little bit. Like, hey, wait a minute. I talked to somebody who's super familiar with the process, a source of mine, and was discussing what I had just mentioned about maybe pulling an upset. And between us, we came to the conclusion that there was a plausible explanation for that, especially once we learned that the bid was $1.05 billion, way south of the $1.4 billion, was that Morgan Stanley was doing its best job to make sure that the Bon Jovi/Toronto group thought it had a fighting chance, because if it doesn't think it has a fighting chance, then you're probably not gonna get their best offer. You're gonna just get some, hey, here, take this. We're gonna, whatever. Hey, what do you think of this $750 million? Ha ha ha. Move to the next thing. So I think that maybe Morgan Stanley, maybe their feedback about their chances was coming from the Bills Trust or Morgan Stanley, that you have a fighting chance in this thing. And of course, anybody who's competitive and as businessmen are, successful businessmen are, once you're into something, whether you're a coach or a player, you think you can win, and once and you think, all right, hey, maybe I'll be able to pull this off. So I get where that vibe was. Now, in retrospect, they didn't have a chance, but I think that Trevor Berbick probably thought he had a chance against Mike Tyson. He probably thought, maybe the night before he fought Mike Tyson, maybe I can pull this off tomorrow. Maybe I can land that lucky punch.
Tim Grant,
maybe he trips getting in the ring and cracks his forehead on the ring apron, and I win by DQ. So anyway, that was an interesting not a tidal wave, but there was an interesting current going on regarding that group in the 3 days leading up to that bid. And another part of it too, I think it could have just been paranoia. We had about 2 weeks where nothing was going on, where because of Labor Day weekend and there was the process where there just wasn't anything going on, that even if you think you're in command, when you have nothing but to sit start to wonder, hey, what's the Toronto group Trump group up to? Hey, can we do more? Should we do more? Why is it so quiet out there? How come there's no reports coming out about anything, no rumors? What's anybody up? And that paranoia maybe maybe the Trump group is starting to say, who knows what somebody's got up their sleeve, and it's it's a mind game in a lot of ways too.
Was Donald Trump ever serious? His initial non-binding bid was a cool billion, according to reports, and then his final bid was around 800 million, according to again various reports. I can't remember who exactly had that number. Mm-hmm. Was he ever really serious, or did he just want to see the books and get his name in the paper and stuff?
Well, he was there at the end. He was serious enough that Morgan Stanley kept him around in the process. And even if it was some sort of public relations campaign or a way to, that's it's still good business. His name was in the papers, and it probably turned out he thought it was worthwhile for him to do. So I think it was legit. If he were to submit an actual bid, hey, Tom Golisano didn't submit a bid.
Right.
As much as he screwed around with the whole process. He didn't take his stadium tour like other people did. He didn't have his face-to-face meeting like others did. He didn't admit his the initial non-binding proposal. He just pretty much was cute through the whole process. Whereas Donald Trump, at least he went through all the paces and put in his bid.
What about some of the other silent bidders, people we didn't know about? Have you heard any indication of who they might be? Did Jeffrey Gundlach and Jim Kelly get a bid together and actually submit anything?
There's some fuzziness there. I have not been able to confirm what they did, if they chose to move forward. Most of my indications is not.
Okay.
Had trouble finding people to get involved, but there was a lot of rumors yesterday about a hedge fund group out of New York, but maybe they were just boogeymen that were kind of invented to help make sure that the bids from the Toronto group and the Pegulas came in as fat as they could possibly be. So yeah, it's just a lot of smoke and mirrors involved with the process and things we have to learn.
I wanted to thank Tim Graham for joining us tonight. Thank you all for watching, and my internet connection booted me out of the chat room at some point. But anyways, follow him at @ByTimGraham or read his stuff at the Buffalo News. Tim had to go anyway. He's got a story to write. I'll talk to you guys later. Thanks. Bye.